Ever get that feeling?
Yeah.
Like a little spark between the ancient world and what we're figuring out today? Like, could there be some weird connection between what ancient texts say about love and, like, our current understanding of energy and stuff?
It's a fascinating thought, right? And that's exactly the kind of space we're going to play in today in this deep dive. We've got two totally different sources we're going to pull together. The Kama Sutra, of course, and then the Law of One material. We'll
Mm,
see what we can find those unexpected connections without, overloading everyone with information.
right. Let's do this. Okay, first, the Kama Sutra. Most people probably have, like, a vague idea, but let's get a bit more specific. It's a classic in Sanskrit literature about love, and all that translated into English back in the late 1800s. It's pretty extensive, too, almost 800 verses across 7 sections. It covers, well, basically everything about love and relationships, you name it. And what's cool is that the author Vatsyayana mentions he's pulling from even older texts, some of which are lost now, like stuff by Gaunikaputra and Nandikeshwara.
And then we have the Law of One. This is much more recent, starting in 1981. It's a series of channeled messages from an entity called Ra, who identifies as a social memory complex. You can think of it as like a collective consciousness, a group soul kind of thing, sharing experiences over a very long time. These sections explore some pretty deep metaphysical concepts, like the law of one, the idea that everything is connected, also different levels of consciousness, and really the nature of reality itself. 3 people were involved in receiving and documenting these communications: Don Elkins, Carla Ruckert, and Jim McCarty.
So, yeah, this is going to be interesting, right? On the one hand, this ancient text from India all about earthly love and how relationships work. And on the other, these modern channeled dialogues that are diving deep into cosmic principles and the evolution of consciousness and all that. So, our mission today, well, to see if we can find any surprising overlaps between these seemingly different worlds, or at least where they offer totally contrasting viewpoints, on human connection, how energy works in our lives, and our never ending quest to understand, well, everything. You ready for this?
Absolutely. Let's do it. Why don't we start by looking at how each of these sources lays out a basic framework for understanding the human experience. The Kama Sutra presents life as driven by these 3 interconnected pursuits: dharma, which is, religious duty; artha, which is all about wealth and security; and then kama, which covers pleasure and love. But it's not just saying go out there and have a blast. The text actually raises a really important question. Can the pursuit of pleasure actually get in the way of achieving dharma and artha?
Yeah, and it even brings up examples like from mythology and history. Figures like King Dandakya, Indra, Kichaka, and Ravana, all of whom supposedly fell from grace because they couldn't control their desires, like a warning sign. Unchecked pleasure leads to bad consequences, bad influences, and eventually ruin. So right away, the Kama Sutra makes us think, could chasing pleasure actually sabotage those other important goals in life? Pretty relevant, I think, even today, right? That
Right.
struggle between what we want right now and what's good for us in the long run.
Definitely. A timeless dilemma. But hold on. The Kama Sutra doesn't just condemn pleasure outright. It says that to achieve any goal, even happiness, requires effort, doing things the right way. So even with pleasure, there's an element of intention, of skillful action that matters.
Right, interesting. Okay, so now let's look at the law of one. Totally different perspective here. Central to this is the idea of densities of consciousness. So we're told that Earth is currently in third density, the realm of mind, body, and spirit complexes. That's us, right? And get this density is described as a state of sleep and a forgetting, and it's actually presented as necessary for free will to actually work. Wow, so that feeling, like we're limited or we don't understand everything, it's supposed to be that way? That's a wild way to think about it, isn't it? Like our everyday experience is by design.
It really is a unique perspective, and this forgetting is what makes real choice and learning possible without, being constantly aware of all our past experiences and how we're connected to everything else.
Hmm.
And there's more. The Law of One also talks about third density being full of catalytic action, meaning that the events and choices we face each day, they're like powerful drivers for our personal evolution. They're opportunities to learn, to teach.
So, in a way, both sources kind of recognize that life as a human is complex, even challenging by design. But they come at it from totally different angles. The Kama Sutra is focused on finding a balance between our desires and, like, society as a whole, right? While the Law of One puts our current experience into this vast cosmic framework of consciousness and how it evolves. Okay, so we've laid out the basic ideas about how each source sees the human experience. Now let's zoom in on something super important, how we connect with each other. Let's start with the Kama Sutra again.
Sure. So when it comes to relationships, the Kama Sutra is surprisingly detailed and practical. It talks about the role of a virtuous wife and what she does, like managing the household and pleasing her husband. It even suggests she should basically do whatever her husband wants. Then it goes into these very specific descriptions of different types of kisses and, well, positions for sex.
Some of those descriptions are really something else, right? But it's not just about the physical side of things. It also talks about the emotional and even strategic aspects of relationships. There's this emphasis on loving Congress after being apart or having a fight, highlighting the need to reconnect emotionally. And it even gets into strategies for getting someone to fall for you, including using go-betweens and understanding what motivates a woman like, sometimes even appealing to her fear of, public shame.
It's interesting that it provides specific advice for courtesans, too, like on how to manage their relationships depending on the guy's personality and how much money he has.
Yeah.
It's all very pragmatic, socially aware, but definitely within the context of that specific culture and time, which, might sound pretty patriarchal to us today. Does it say anything else about the role of women and their agency in relationships? Anything to balance that out?
It's a good point. It's true, the text does emphasize the wife's role in pleasing her husband, but it also talks about how important it is for both people to be satisfied during sex, and it does recognize women's desires and feelings. The advice it gives, both for men and women, on how to arouse and please their partners suggests that, there's a certain level of reciprocity that's valued, even if, of course, the social norms back then were different from today.
Okay, that's good to know. Now let's switch gears again and look at how the law of one views connection. Here, the focus shifts to energy transfer between our mind-body-spirit complexes, especially during sex. This exchange is seen as a direct result of the polarities between people, and it can be amplified or blocked, depending on how they connect.
So, while the Kama Sutra is all about the practicalities and the social dynamics of relationships, including the physical expression of love, the Law of One is looking at it through this lens of universal energy flow and how the Creator experiences itself through these connections. Kind of amazing, right? These two perspectives, they're so different in their approach, yet they both emphasize how important connection is for us humans. Okay, so we've talked about how each source frames human experience and how we connect with each other. Now, what about our inner world and how we grow as individuals?
Good question. The Kama Sutra is really big on self-awareness during intimate encounters. It says people should be very aware of their own desires and what they're capable of, and also their partner's nature and how they're responding. It even gets into detail about recognizing signs of a woman's enjoyment and when she's not satisfied, and suggests that men should focus on arousing their partners both before and during intercourse.
Yeah, it's all about being really in tune with all those subtle cues, both physical and emotional. This heightened awareness seems to be presented as the key to achieving mutual fulfillment and a truly harmonious connection, according to the text.
Right. Now, if we turn to the law of one, inner states and personal growth are connected to the idea of 7 energy centers within our mind-body-spirit complex. These are often called rays. And blockages in these centers, which can happen because of ego attachments or feeling unworthy, can mess up the natural flow of intelligent energy. And that energy is understood as love light or light love.
Okay, so it's not just about physical sensations in the moment. There's this deeper energetic component at play. The Law of One says that balancing those 7 energy centers is absolutely critical for us to grow spiritually and to progress through the different densities of consciousness.
That's exactly it. And the indigo ray center, associated with the pineal gland, is especially important for moving to 4th density and possibly even connecting to what's called intelligent infinity, a direct link to the source of everything. So this idea that our inner energy alignment drives our personal and spiritual evolution is really different from the Kama Sutra's more behavioral approach to intimacy and relationships.
Yeah, it really shows their different priorities. One's about the dynamics between people and mastering pleasure and connection within a lifetime. The other is looking inward at our fundamental energy and how that's the key to cosmic evolution over many lifetimes. Okay, so now I'm curious, what do these frameworks say about external influences and guidance in our lives?
Well, the Kama Sutra acknowledges that we don't just automatically know about love and sex.
Yeah.
It specifically talks about learning from different sources, like ancient medicine, teachings from the Vedas, magical practices, even stories shared by relatives you trust. So it recognizes that outside knowledge and cultural traditions are really important in shaping how we understand love and relationships and what we do.
So it's saying you can't just figure this stuff out on your own. There's a whole body of knowledge and cultural wisdom that informs it.
Right. Now, in the Law of One, external influences take on this really cosmic dimension. It introduces the confederation of planets in service to the infinite creator. That's a mouthful. but it's basically a benevolent group that sends out love and light energy to those who ask for it. So like a positive guiding force out there.
But there's also that other group, right? That's not so helpful, the Orion group.
Exactly. The Orion group is presented as, well, not so nice. Their intentions are conquest and enslavement, and they target individuals and societies that vibrate at a lower frequency, you could say. The Law of One also talks about wanderers, beings from higher densities who chose to incarnate on Earth to help humanity make the shift. It even gets into methods for helping these wanderers remember why they're here.
So in the Law of One, you've got this huge cosmic drama unfolding with positive and negative forces influencing humanity's evolution. A totally different picture from the Kama Sutra, which focuses on earthly sources of wisdom and tradition. Okay, let's move on to the idea of transformation and how we progress. What does each source have to say about that?
So the Kama Sutra, it's mostly about mastering the art of love and navigating relationships in this life, right? It doesn't really get into spiritual evolution in a cosmic sense, but it does consistently stress the importance of learning how to handle these earthly interactions. You could say that mastering the arts of love, according to the text, leads to a more fulfilling and successful life. It's very focused on the here and now, about using knowledge and practice to improve your life and relationships in this world.
Right, it's about getting better, more skilled in the human realm.
Exactly. But the Law of One is completely different. It's all about transformation and progressing through cycles of densities of consciousness. It introduces this concept of harvest, which is when beings move to higher densities based on whether their energy is oriented towards serving others or serving themselves. There's supposed to be a big harvest for Earth around 2011. So it's this ongoing journey of consciousness, moving up from one level to the next based on our energy and the choices we make. And the Law of One also talks about how much we can learn in third density, even calling it a kind of spiritual childhood, a necessary step in our development. And then there's the concept of the higher self, which exists in mid-sixth density. That's like our future self, guiding us on our current path. So the time frame is massively different. The Kama Sutra is focused on this life and finding fulfillment within it, while the Law of One gives us this huge multi-lifetime, multi-density view of spiritual evolution. It really shows how different their perspectives are. One is totally engaged with the details of human interaction in this reality, and the other is trying to understand our journey in the cosmos and how we fit into the big picture. Okay, one last thing to consider, the role of energy and intention.
The Kama Sutra includes various recipes and practices that are supposed to increase sexual vigor and attractiveness. So it's directly talking about intentionally influencing physical energy to enhance pleasure and make relationships stronger. The idea is to improve your experiences with love and desire in this lifetime. So it's about applying your knowledge of physical energy to improve your relationships.
And the Law of One takes this much broader view of energy and intention. It says our thoughts, especially negative ones like anger, can actually have real effects, even causing physical illness. This becomes even more pronounced in higher densities, where the link between thought and reality is stronger. It also talks about using tools like crystals and the Great Pyramid to focus intelligent energy for healing and learning. But it emphasizes that you need a balanced mind-body-spirit complex for that to work. The focus here is on healing, learning, and spiritual growth on a universal scale, working with these fundamental energies. And the Law of One also says that true healing often involves understanding what's causing the harm in the first place, which brings us back to how important it is to be self-aware and balanced.
Right, it all ties together. So while the Kama Sutra focuses on intentionally using physical energy to get specific results in this life, the Law of One is talking about how our thoughts and intentions shape our reality and affect our health and spiritual growth on a much grander scale. Quite a contrast, isn't it? One rooted in the realities of earthly relationships, the other reaching for an understanding of the universe's most fundamental energy principles. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what stands out to you? What are some of the key differences and maybe even some surprising connections between these sources?
Well, the biggest difference is definitely the scope, right? The
hmm
Kama Sutra gives us this very specific, culturally rooted guide to love and relationships. It focuses on how we interact in this world and how to skillfully pursue pleasure. The Law of One, on the other hand, offers a much more expansive view, putting human experience within this vast framework of evolving consciousness across multiple densities, all guided by the fundamental Law of One.
Yeah, but even with these huge differences, there are some interesting potential connections. Both sources, each in their own way, highlight the importance of understanding and working with energy, whether it's the energy dynamics between people that we see in the Kama Sutra or the universal intelligent energy discussed in the Law of One. And both, though in different contexts, also emphasize personal growth. The Kama Sutra focuses on growth in our social and relationship spheres in this life, while the Law of One sees it as a spiritual journey through densities over many lifetimes.
What I find really thought-provoking is how the Kama Sutra encourages this deep understanding of yourself and your partner in the context of intimacy. You could almost say that this emphasis on being aware of each other and the energy exchange on a small scale.
Mhm.
Maybe that's a reflection of the self-awareness and energetic balance that the Law of One says is essential for spiritual growth on a much larger scale.
I like that. It really makes you wonder, when you consider these very different viewpoints, what does it mean to be truly well-informed about the human experience? Could the pursuit of pleasure, like in the Kama Sutra, and the pursuit of enlightenment, like in the Law of One, be more connected than we think in our own lives? Maybe understanding our desires and how we connect with others on Earth can teach us something about our greater cosmic journey, and vice versa.
Definitely something to ponder. These two bodies of knowledge, one ancient and focused on this world, the other modern and reaching for the cosmos, both offer valuable insights into what it means to be human and how to navigate the intricacies of connection, desire, and our place in the grand scheme of things.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's given me a lot to think about, and I hope you too. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.